Hi guys, you are welcome to News Daily. We are very happy today because Professor Lumumba, the Pan-Africanist, actually defended Nnamdi Kanu yesterday in the courts, and he had a big victory. And now the report getting to us is that Tinubu is very confused and panicked because he has been put to shame over this matter. So please watch this video to the end because we will show you the full detail of the victory that the professor won for us yesterday in the court. Thanks so much for watching. God bless you.
A very big thank you to Professor Patrick Lumumba. You know, a lot of people don't know that Nnamdi Kanu has a perfect relationship with this particular man, being Professor Lumumba, who is a Pan-Africanist. He was the one that secured that, landmark victory for Mazi Nnamdi Kanu in Kenya. In this particular video, I'm going to tell you how he destroyed the Kenyan government, who came to object or probably defend themselves in that particular case. He was so eloquent. I'm going to tell you the points he raised and how he dismantled all the so-called evidence that the Kenyan government brought to justify their illegal cooperation with the Nigerian government in the unlawful extradition of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. I'm going to dissect. The Kenyan government said we have a bilateral blah 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 relationship with the Nigerian government, so we have the prerogative of right to do whatever we want to do. But let me tell you how this particular man, Professor Lumumba, actually defended and won that particular case for Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. I'm going to dissect it for you guys. He was actually the lead counsel in that particular case. A lot of people didn't even know that that case was going on in Kenya, and this man was sacrificing his time, his resources to ensure that he gets victory for Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. God bless him. Now let us delve into the crux of the matter, the points he raised, and how he got the victory for Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. Please. Pay attention to this particular video so you will know those that are with us and those that are against us. Now, as you can see on your screen, they said Professor Patrick Lurch Otieno PLO Lumumba, a renowned Kenyan lawyer and Pan-Africanist, was appointed as the lead counsel for Kanu's legal team in Kenya. Lumumba, known for his eloquence and expertise in constitutional and international law, took on the case to challenge the Kenyan government's role in Kanu's rendition. Now, these are the key legal arguments that Lumumba actually raised. They said Lumumba and the legal team, built their case on several critical points grounded in Kenyan constitutional law and international human rights frameworks. Now, the first legal framework or the first key point or argument that Lumumba raised was the issue of violation of constitutional rights. The violation of the constitutional rights of Kenya. He said that the Kenyan constitution, as of 2010, guarantees fundamental rights, including the right to personal liberty, freedom from arbitrary detention, and the right to a fair trial. This is what he first of all quoted the constitution of the Kenyan government as amended by 2010. Now, they said Lumumba, as you could see, argued that Kanu's arrest on June 19, 2021 at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport and his subsequent detention for 8 good days without being presented in court violated this constitutional protection. That for them to arrest Nnamdi Kanu and detain him for 8 days without him having access to his lawyers or probably taking him to court, violated their constitutional protection. Now he went ahead to raise another point. He said the illegal rendition. He said that the team, being Lumumba's team, contended that Nnamdi Kanu's transfer to Nigeria was not an extradition, but an unlawful extraordinary rendition. He said that extradition requires a formal legal process, including court hearings and adherence to bilateral treaties. He said no such process was followed in Nnamdi Kanu's case, and Kenya lacked an extradition treaty with Nigeria for this case. Kenya do not have an extradition treaty with Nigeria, so how come? This is what Professor Lumumba was arguing in court. He went ahead to argue about the illegal rendition by quoting the African Charter. He said, as you can see on the screen, that the African Charter on Human and People's Rights and the United Nations Convention is against torture, to which Kenya is a signatory, prohibit forced transfers without due process. He said, Kenya, you are a signatory to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights and the United Nations Convention against torture. That you are a signatory to this. So why then did you collaborate with the Nigerian government to torture this particular man by detaining him for 8 good 8 good days without him having access to his lawyers or probably taking him to court. That for that, you're a signatory to this particular African charter. For that, you've broken a lot of international laws. He went further to argue his point on state accountability. As you could see on the screen, they said Lumumba argued that the Kenyan government, through its security agencies, colluded with Nigerian authorities to abduct and rendition Kanu, making Kenya complicit in gross human rights violation. That they violated the rights of Nnamdi Kanu, that the Kenyan government, through its security agencies, colluded with Nigerian authorities to abduct Nnamdi Kanu. Now, they said that the team, being Lumumba's team, presented evidence, including Kanu's British passport and travel documents, to show he was a lawful resident in Kenya at the time of his arrest. I love smart lawyers. I love intelligent and smart lawyers. This Lumumba is a well-seasoned lawyer. For him to prove his case, he first of all presented some evidence, both Nnamdi Kanu's, passport and a British passport and the travel document which he came into the Kenyan boundaries with, so that he can prove that this man was not a criminal or an illegal immigrant, that the security agencies in Kenya could have easily abducted and tortured anyhow, that he's not a criminal. Let's go ahead to see other points that this particular man, Professor Lumumba, raised in securing victory for Nnamdi Kanu. He said about the torture and inhuman treatment that was given to Nnamdi Kanu in Kenya. The petition highlighted, being Lumumba's petition, highlighted that Kanu was subjected to torture and inhumane treatment and incommunicado detention during his 8 days in Kenyan custody, violating both Kenyan and international law. What the Nigerian government we did with the Kenyan government needs to be punished. You abducted this particular man, kept him in a dungeon in Kenya for 8 good days, tortured him with Kenyan authorities. Where is this being done? If not for the fact that this particular man is an Igbo man, by now, in fact, a lot of things could have happened. Imagine, you abducted him, kept him in detention with the Kenyan government and tortured him for 8 good days. So this is what Lumumba actually argued, that this is against both Kenyan and international law. Now look at how the court proceedings started. They said that the case was heard before Justice E.C. Nwita at the High Court in Nairobi. Lumumba presented a compelling case leveraging his expertise in constitutional law and his reputation as a persuasive orator. Now, here are the key aspects of the proceedings as included. The evidence and the testimonies that the legal team provided documentation and affidavits detailing Kanu's arrest and detention, including his travel documents and statements from IPOB. They said the lack of any official extradition request or court order from the Kenyan government was a center point. As the case of Nnamdi Kanu is actually ongoing in the Federal High Court before Justice James Omotosho, why in court you have to present your evidence and your witnesses. So this is the evidence that Nnamdi Kanu's legal team in Kenya, led by this Professor Lumumba, actually tendered. He tendered a lot of the travel documents and statements, and tendered that there was no official extradition request that was approved by any court for Nnamdi Kanu to be extradited from Kenya to Nigeria. Now let us look at the government defense. Let us look at what the Kenyan government, who committed this evil and atrocious act, said, and how they tried to defend themselves. Now they said that the Kenyan government, represented by States Council, argued that Kanu's transfer was a matter of national security and bilateral cooperation with Nigeria. However, they struggled to provide evidence of a legal extradition process or justify the incommunicado detention. The Kenyan government were blabbing that it was more of a national security issue and bilateral cooperation. But the court asked them, where is your extradition document or probably process, and why did you keep Nnamdi Kanu incommunicado when you detained him unlawfully for 8 days in Kenya? The federal government, did not, or they were unable. The federal government of Kenya, we are unable to prove this particular case or probably give reasons. They were only shouting, it's a matter of national security and we have a bilateral relationship with the Nigerian government. Now let us see what Justice Nwita, the judgment, the full judgment he gave after hearing from both sides, from the Kenyan government and from Nnamdi Kanu's legal team, led by Professor Patrick Lumumba. Now look at what the chief judge of that particular court actually said on this case. He said on June 24, 2025, Justice E.C. Nwita delivered a landmark judgment in favor of Nnamdi Kanu. The key findings and outcomes were as follows: that number one, Look at what the judge Nwita said, and this is what we are telling Justice James Omotosho to follow. James Omotosho should actually look at the kind of judgment these courts are giving that are not biased and that are not influenced by the government of the country. But the judge said, on the unlawful arrest and detention, that the court ruled that Kanu's arrest and detention in Kenya from June 19th to June 27, 2021 were unconstitutional and violated his rights under Article 29, which is the freedom from arbitrary detention, and 49, which is rights of arrested persons of the Kenyan Constitution. The court went further to say that the 8-day incommunicado detention without access to legal representation of family was deemed a gross violation of human rights. It is only in Nigeria and in Africa. Nigeria polluted and went to Kenya and corrupted their government. It's only in Nigeria that the security agencies will abduct you and keep you in solitary confinement without you having access to your lawyers or to your family. It's only in Nigeria that such nonsense happens. So the court said that is a gross violation of Nnamdi Kanu's human rights for keeping him 8-day incommunicado detention. The court went further to rule about the illegal rendition. The court of Nwita declared that Kanu's transfer to Nigeria, an extraordinary rendition is an extraordinary rendition and not a lawful extradition. The absence of a formal extradition request, court proceedings, or adherence to international treaties rendered the transfer illegal. So the court ruled that the extraordinary rendition of Nnamdi Kanu, or the transfer of Nnamdi Kanu from Kenya to Nigeria, is illegal because it broke international laws. Now the judge went further to rule. They said the judgment cited violations of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights and other international conventions. Remember that Kenya is a signatory to this particular African Charter on Human Rights and People's Rights and co. So the judge had to cite that, see, our country is a signatory to this particular, human right, this African Charter. So you people violated this too. Now, compensatory damages, after Nwita, gave all those rulings, he now said that the court awarded Kanu 10 million Kenyan shillings, approximately 119.6 million naira or 74,000 USD, in compensatory damages for the violation of his fundamental rights. That the Kenyan government was held liable for the actions of its security agencies. Now, the judicial rebuke, the judge had to rebuke the Kenyan government. They said Justice Nwita criticized the Kenyan government for undermining its own constitutional framework and international obligations. The ruling underscored the importance of due process and the rule of law, even in cases involving international cooperation. See, people should know that all the legal teams, both in Kenya and in Nigeria, representing Nnamdi Kanu's case, are very smart and intelligent. You could see how this Professor Lumumba, Patrick Lumumba, destroyed the federal government of Kenya and won this particular case for Nnamdi Kanu. We are admonishing that James Omotosho should look at how Nwita, gave a clear judgment without being biased or probably influenced by this gibberish excuses that the Kenyan government wanted to give. Let Omotosho do the same thing. Well, I would like you guys to drop your comments in the comment section and equally comment and congratulate Professor Lumumba for actually getting victory for Nnamdi Kanu. Do get to subscribe and follow us. I'll see you guys later.